home of horror podcast, home of horror, the home of horror podcast. What's up, everybody, and welcome back to the Home of Horror podcast. This is episode 44, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe 45, but I think it's 44. I think. Getting close to 50. Hopping in the studio today. I just got done watching one of my favorite alien films, Signs. I absolutely love this movie. I wanted to jump in the studio and talk about it a little bit. Drinking some high noons, so cheers if you're drinking something as well. It's very hot in the studio today. It's about 85 degrees out, so it's about 100 in here. Can't have any fans going or anything like that, or else it ruins the audio quality, and we're all about quality around here, you know what I'm saying? Yeah, I wanted to hop in. Obviously, this is a M. Night Shyamalan film. I wanted to start right off and just say that I know that there's kind of a divide with people and M. Night Shyamalan. You know, one of the biggest things about him, and a reason that I really like him as a director, is he always swings for the fences, which is ironic that we're talking about Signs, right? If you know, you know. I really think that as a director, he swings hard, he swings for the fences, and sometimes he misses. There's been a lot of times where he's missed, and I understand that. I accept that. But as a director and as a writer, when he hits, I mean, it's a home run. When he hits, it's a home run. Signs, The Sixth Sense, Unbreakable. I even liked The Visit. I loved The Village. That's an unpopular one. I think a lot of people don't like The Village, but I liked it. Some other ones I'm not a huge fan of, but when I just like that he always swings for the fences, man. He always does exactly what he wants to do, and he goes hard every time. And sometimes he strikes out, and that's okay. Because I think him doing so, by striking out sometimes and not making such good movies, he that next time that he does swing for the fence, he hits, man. This movie came out in 2002, I believe. So I think it was, if I'm not mistaken, I really think this was my first PG-13 movie I saw in the theaters, because I was 13. I turned 13 in 2002. And I just remember being in the theaters and certain parts of this movie, and I feel like the movies I've been to in the past, 10 years, just haven't had like the same impact that some of these movies had back in the early 2000s. This movie, I remember seeing it in theaters, and I remember the impact it had on the audience. It was one of those movies where there was a lot of gasps, there was a lot of jumping, there was some screams, you know what I mean? This movie was scary to people. And that always stuck with me, and maybe that's a reason why I like this movie so much. It just hit hard in theaters, man. And I really like that. And as I was watching this movie again, I thought about that, because you just don't see that very often anymore. You know, people are so kind of just used to seeing the jump scares, and they're used to seeing just horror movies in general, and they've gotten better over the years, obviously. So we're almost like numb to them a little bit. Obviously, as horror fans, look more into detail with the story and stuff like that. But, back then when these early 2000s movies were coming out, they were actually scary in theaters. And the scores were so good. In this movie, the score is amazing. Just that violin, that eerie violin, and the eerie keys. And they use basically the same score throughout the entire film. It's that same little ditty, you know what I mean? And it worked so incredibly well. It fits the movie so well. Um, and we get that a lot of days, a lot of, in movies now as well. The scores are always really good. I think, now there's an understanding that, the music is very synonymous with the rest of the film, and it helps build the story, and it helps create an atmosphere. And they did in older movies as well. I'm not saying they didn't. I'm just saying that now it's very rare that someone's like, "Oh, I didn't like the score," or it didn't fit the movie. You don't see that very often nowadays. Um, but this one just stands out, and I think if anybody hears it without the movie, you know what it's from. You know what I mean? Um, so yeah, let's jump in a little bit. Right from the get-go, the opening credits are awesome, right? It's like this blue screen with the vignette, and it's just like this bluish. It looks like an old like 70s or 60s style credit scene. And it's really cool. And I remember that in theaters as well. And with the music playing and everything, and you were just kind of gearing up for the movie a little bit. You kind of sat back in your seat and you're like, okay, this one could be good. So right from there, it's already like intriguing. Uh, you know, and then it just jumps right in to like the cornfield, right? And one thing I really like about this movie is that unlike other alien movies or extraterrestrial movies or alien invasion movies, whatever you want to call them, this movie really, instead of focusing and having like a bunch of action and anybody, I feel like anybody can make a movie that's explosions and flying saucers and all this stuff, but this movie really hones in and just focuses on this one family and what it would be like to be faced with possibly the end of the world, when you're just based in this little town on this little farm, surrounded by corn. And it's a really odd but interesting way to tell a story about aliens, and it's not just about aliens. Obviously, the symbolism in this movie and the imagery is in your face. Obviously, Graham Hess, used to be a priest. He used to be a father. He was, a man of God. And then we see at the beginning, obviously, we see the cross in his room, and it's not there anymore. You just see the outline of it, really. So we know that he's a skeptic now, and something has happened. Later in the movie, we find out that his wife died, and obviously changed his mind about his beliefs. So that's all in your face and stuff. But as far as like the story about aliens, if you want to dumb it down to that, it's a really cool way to tell it, and you don't get that very often. Usually with alien movies, we get, invasion style, like cities, chaos, and then like other than that, we get like abduction movies, which are all great. Those are all fun. I love those types of really, they're just they lean more on sci-fi than they do like a thriller suspense / horror film like this one does. And I really like that about this. It's personal. It feels personal, like it's just this ordinary small town American family in Pennsylvania is where it's based. And they're just faced with this possibility that they're going to be invaded and that there's nothing they can do about it. And it's just a really cool and eerie and interesting idea and concept to do. And I think that's why I really, really like this movie. I relate to it, with the characters. And it's awesome to see that with like an alien film where it just feels like there's more horror in it. There's more terror when it feels personal like that, when you can relate to these people and it's not just a bunch of like people running around with guns and like, the armies around and like, stuff like that. When you take all that away and you strip it down to just this family, it just gets a lot more creepy, in my opinion. Obviously, in this movie, we have Joaquin Phoenix and we have Mel Gibson as the the stars of this movie. Terrific actors, obviously, right? Um, Mel Gibson does a hell of a job. And as far as Joaquin goes, he does a great job as well. It's just weird. I think this is the possibly like the last movie he played where he just plays like a normal dude. You know, I feel like every movie he's in now, it's very eccentric characters and like stuff like that. And in this movie, he just plays the normal brother. You know what I mean? It's very subtle character and you know, just a baseball player and ex baseball player anyway. You know, just a normal guy. You see Joaquin Phoenix obviously in the Joker and you know all these eccentric roles and you know he in this movie it almost feels like he plays himself, even though I know that he's like a kind of a weird guy anyway. He's a brilliant actor. But it's funny just to go back and see this movie and be like, oh, Joaquin Phoenix is acting normal, you know? It's pretty awesome actually. He's probably my favorite character in the movie. Um, you know, and then obviously we have Rory Culkin, and then I can't remember the girl's name, but she's in, you know, Zombieland. As she got older, she was in some other stuff. But the kids do a terrific job in this movie as well. And you know, obviously, kids in movies is just creepy anyway, right? Um, but they do a good job, and they do a good job of you know, harnessing this feeling of you know, I guess I would say like grief, right? They're grieving still. They've lost their mother, and this family's trying to put it back together. And from what we get in the film, it happened about 6 months ago. Obviously, you guys know the story, so it's, you know, the mother ends up dying in a car accident and all this kind of stuff. But I don't want to go into that too much. I really just want to talk about how much I fucking love this movie, instead of going into the plot too much. But yeah, they just kind of embody that very well. They feel like they're grieving. They're, you know, Morgan, the son, is really like not okay with his dad. He's trying to piece together what happened to his mom. Obviously, they don't have too much information. Mel Gibson, Graham, he's not giving that much. He's trying to be a single father. He's having a hard time raising his kids now. He has his brother to help him. Meryl, by the way, is Joaquin Phoenix's character's name. And he lives in like the upstairs of like the barn or the garage or whatever you want to call it. And he's helping out and stuff. And yeah, the whole family, you can just tell they're grieving and they're having a tough time, but they're trying to stick it out. They're trying to stick together. And so you have all that going on. And then at the same time, you have these crop circles happening. And it's just such a cool way to like be like, oh yeah, in a roundabout way of saying it, it's an alien movie. You know what I mean? But like in reality, there's obviously so much more to it, with this grieving family trying to get through tough times. And then obviously it's going to get tougher with an alien invasion on their hands. But I can't stress enough how much I love that it just feels so personal, when you can just focus on one family. Very, very little characters. You know, even like the sheriff seems like she's a very, you know, she's a small town sheriff, so it's not like there's like, you know, she's coming out for house calls because like there's like, you know, pets acting weird, and then there's these crop circles and she's trying to piece it together. You know, obviously they're in this small farm town in Pennsylvania, so there's not like a lot of fucking crime and shit. Everybody in the town knows each other, so just very personal. There's just not much to it as far as like getting to know so many characters. And when you don't have to do that, when you don't throw all these characters that you usually get in like an alien movie where there's like generals and fucking scientists and all this shit, you know, you just get this family and then a few other characters here and there, and you get to really, you know, really understand who they are, as people and what their story is, which is another reason to just love this movie. Yeah, love it. Another great thing is like, as I was watching, I was kind of like, you know what, this isn't like the fucking most beautiful movie ever shot. You know what I mean? There's not like a bunch of color and stuff, but the cinematography is good. I mean, but let's be honest. I mean, the whole movie is pretty much like corn. You see corn all the time. Corn, 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 corn. But it's just shot so well. The angles and the way it's shot is just insanely effective. Insanely effective. There's the scene when he's in the cornfield and he sees the leg of the alien, right? He walks out there. He's trying, in his mind, Graham's still thinking like that this is a hoax and that he really wants to believe. I think deep down he knows that it's not people and it's not a hoax, but he really wants to believe that it is because he doesn't want to have to all of a sudden deal with this whole situation, right? And there's a scene where he walks out into the cornfield and he drops the fucking the flashlight, obviously. Why wouldn't you in a cornfield, right? But the way they do that scene is so fucking effective because he turns the flashlight back on, right? He bangs it a few times. And then when he turns it on, it pans. And then I think your eyes are like thinking that something's going to be in the middle of the shot, in the middle of the frame, but it's not. It's off to the right. And the leg is going back into the corn. And what it does is it makes your eyes wander until you catch the leg and it catches you off guard. And you don't even get a real good shot. At the leg, it's real quick, it's heavily lit, everything else is dark, and it's such a beautiful shot in the sense that it was shot well, the angles and everything of it. Not that it's like these brilliant colors and the leg is like detailed or anything like that. It doesn't need to be because it makes your eyes wander. The effect is supposed to be that you don't see it until the very end and you don't see a lot of it. That's the trick. And that's the trick with most of the scares and most of the terrifying scenes in this movie when you see the alien and things like that. It's just really, really well shot. Angles. Everything's kind of just straight and to the point. They have some really tricky stuff in there that works really well. And it doesn't have to look amazing. Just the way it's playing off your eyes and your mind. It's almost like instead of just letting your mind make up something, which a lot of movies do, and it's good, like Psycho's famous for that. It's like, we're not going to show you the stabbing in the shower scene. We're going to let you imagine it, and it's going to be that much more terrifying, which is true in a lot of instances. But this movie allows you to see a little bit of that as well, but still leave enough off camera or have it be quick enough where you can still kind of piece things together with your mind. It's like, we're going to give you a glance and then you're going to have to put everything else together. And it's super brilliant in my opinion. And I don't know how, as far as the horror community goes, I don't know what the verdict is on this movie. I don't know. I haven't talked to, not a lot of people talk about this movie anymore. I'm not sure if it's, highly liked. I have no idea. But for me, I love this movie. And it's for things like that. It's highly underrated in my opinion. The other thing I want to talk about too is how the movie seems slow at first, which I kind of like because I think it's honestly my favorite part of the movie is the build up to everything. Obviously the ending puts everything together and it's a little bit more intense, which is great. That's the horror aspect of it. But I think that the information you're gathering throughout the movie ends up being the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, right? I mean, every scene matters in this movie. But you don't feel that way at the beginning. You're kind of like, oh shit, why did they say that? I mean, the monologues are great that Mel Gibson has. The dialogue is great between these characters and all that. But there's some of it's really, really good. And then others are just feel like, they just feel like lines that were thrown in there, just to kind of throw you off. But then they end up being the most important things, obviously with the water, with Bo leaving the water everywhere, and then them talking about Merrill's baseball skills and his games the whole time. Um, Morgan's asthma, all that kind of stuff. And then obviously the flashback scenes with Graham and his wife lead up all the way to the end, right? But all those things you're thinking, I think, at the beginning that like they're not going to really mean much, and that's where it's throwing you off a bit. And it's super cool because, when you're watching an M. Night Shyamalan film, I feel like you're already waiting for like a twist, right? When's the big twist coming? What's the twist? Is the twist, is the aliens the twist? Is it not going to be aliens? Whatever. And I think you're so highly focused on that then you don't see the twist coming, right? That everything happens for a reason. That's why it's called signs. There's signs everywhere throughout the movie that are pointing to their fate, and everything happens for a reason, and that kind of thing. And you kind of forget about that because you're throwing, these little throwaway lines that you think are throwaway lines are not throwaway lines at all. They're actually the entire plot point of the movie, right? And so that's super cool because he does it again, man. He tricks you. He gets you. And like I said, with his movies, sometimes they don't hit. They all have a plot twist, and sometimes they just don't hit, But this one hits. It really does. Just like The Sixth Sense, So that build up to everything is amazing. I think learning about the aliens a little bit here and there, what they could be, and you don't know if they're going to be real or if it's going to be a hoax, all that kind of stuff. I really love that part of the movie. I love the build-up, the information that you receive in order to put the entire ending together. Obviously, the ending's great, and everything like that, but it's the lead-up that you get that keeps making me want to watch the movie over and over again. Just finding things I missed, or really paying attention to the scare scenes and the alien when he's on screen and stuff like that. And then obviously the dialogue, you like to go back and listen because, like I said, Mel Gibson's monologues in this are really, really good. Obviously when he's connecting with his kids at the end of the movie, when he's telling them what it was like when they were born, you see that connection kind of coming back. So like this whole scenario, as terrifying and as unfortunate as it is bringing this family closer together. So there's a lot of heartwarming stuff in here. I'm getting a little mushy, right? It's getting emotional over here, bro. So there's a lot of heartwarming, emotional stuff in the film, and it just ties really well together with the overall thrill and suspense and horror of it too. It's really, really good. And his scenes obviously with Merrill on the couch, are you the type of person that sees signs? Or and you get this whole monologue from him, and it feels like he's going into this positive situation or a positive outlook on life, but it's really him being like, we're all on our own. That's how he feels at that point in the movie. So this growth or regrowth of Graham is a really cool development throughout the film, because we obviously only know him as being a skeptic and losing his his faith has been shaken. And then another great character obviously is Ray, who's played Ray Reddy, I think his name is, played by M. Night himself. He always puts himself in every movie, right? Always has a cameo. And but he does a really good job playing this. He's a veterinarian, and I think it's cool that at the beginning, there's something wrong with the dogs, and they're peeing on the floor and shit. And Graham mentions that he's going to call the doctor, and then Morgan's like, he doesn't work with animals. And he's like, oh, well, he'll know what to do. And then you figure out he doesn't want to call the vet because the vet is Ray, who ends up hitting his wife, right? So that whole scene is good. The dialogue between him and Ray is great. very eerie as well. Obviously, the end of that, when he says, don't open my pantry. I found one in there and I locked him in. And then he speeds off and you're like, oh shit, we're about to see this shit, right? Great scene. We get the hand coming out of the pantry. Really well done. And it throws you off, like I said. It guides you in a different direction with those scenes where he's looking with the knife and you think you're going to see this thing up through the reflection of the knife, and then you don't. Once it goes down again, they just get you every time, man. It's good. It's really good. It's a really well executed film. It's fucking so good, man. And like, I'm really going out on a limb here because I don't know how people feel about this film. I really don't, but I don't even give a shit. I'm backing this film up 100% every time. I really do love it. Good drink. Man, it's hot in here. But I'm doing it because I love this movie. Yeah, overall, just, the basement scene's great. When they find the coal chute. I love that whole scenario too, where they're saying, oh, Graham's saying, oh, they're not trying to get in, they're just making noise. Why would they do that? And he asked that question, and they're kind of trying to piece it together. And then they obviously Morgan says the book says, I love that there's this one book in the bookstore, right, that was for city folk, they said. And it just, for some reason, it's the one book in the entire town about aliens, and it like just gives you all the information, right? It even has a picture of like their house in it. It like looks like their house anyway. Just kind of foreshadowing everything. But yeah, they get, they used to pour coal in this basement, so they got to find a coal chute, and then they do the walk from each end, and the light meets in the middle, and then obviously these things change color, right? They blend in with their surroundings. So you don't even notice the fucking hand just hanging next to Morgan, and it's such a good shot. I mean, no one talks about that. Are you kidding me? That's such a good scene, and it's terrifying. You see that on the big screen in 2002 when you're 13 years old? See you later. Fucking awesome. And this is the thing with horror movies too that I like to point out, for me anyway. Movies get, you have to, I really, it's hard to keep judging movies every time you watch them. You have to really think back to the first time you saw it, because it's never going to be as good as that first time, right? And I think so often we watch movies when we're kids and we're just like naive to everything, and like, when I saw that movie, it was brilliant. I was terrified when I saw that movie. I mean, I was 13, seeing it on the big screen. I was like, oh, it's like one of my first big horror movies on the big screen. And it was great. And I had such a fun time watching it. It would be very easy for me to come on here and be like, oh, this is the 20th time I've watched this film, and now that I'm 33, it's just not as scary. Well, it's like, it's not gonna be. It's never gonna be scary the second time, the third time, the fourth time, fifth time. It's never gonna be scary, but you have to appreciate, and you have to look back at the first time you watched it, and that memory you have, and the sensation that it gave you, and the feelings that it gave you then, and you have to take that into consideration when you're reviewing a film like me right now, 20 years later or whatever it is. You have to take that into consideration. And I think it's so easy for us to review a movie now and be like, oh, it's not that scary. It's like, dude, that's the easy way out. That's the cop out. That's a cop out right there. Very easy way. I don't like the easy road. I like the hard road, man. Right? Builds character. So I think you have to take that into consideration when you're talking about films. That first time you watched it, your first reaction, the memories you have from it. What was your feeling then? Were you scared? Did you have fun? Were you thinking about the movie after with your friends? You know what I mean? Did you stay up late because you couldn't sleep because you thought there was a fucking alien on your roof, Did you leave water glasses all over your house? You know what I mean? That stuff is so cool to me. Now, the last thing I want to talk about this film is obviously the iconic alien scene, and it's like found footage style, right? Meryl's watching it from inside the closet, and we get the news video the kid's birthday party, and then we see the alien walk by, right? I mean, I'm gonna have a hot take here. That's probably one of the scariest scenes that has happened in a horror movie in the last 20 years. I'm going to go out and say it. I'm going to say it. Top 5 at least. You can't convince me otherwise. I mean, I sat down today, and I'll keep thinking after this, and maybe I come up with a few more, but it kind of scared a generation. That might be a little tough to say, but it's true, man. I mean, everybody I talk to, that's one of the scariest scenes in a movie in the last 20 years. It really is. Truly iconic. And it's not talked about yet. I think that it's going to be talked about more in the next 10 years, where people are going to look back at this and be like, oh yeah, that was fucking scary, man. And obviously I think they show the alien so quickly that I don't think the CGI of it or the detail of the alien is going to matter that much. It's the fact that you watch that scene, and when the kid says it's behind, they do a great job in that scene of putting, the buildings here, the trees are here, and then in the background you have this like punch buggy or like some sort of buggy car, right? And when he says it's behind, I remember seeing the movie for the first time and being like so focused on that car in the background. Like, oh my God, it's going to be behind that car and it's going to jump out. And then it just walks by the screen. And the whole theater flipped. I still remember it, and I'll remember that forever. And that's what movies are supposed to do. That's why this movie's still great to me. Stuff like that you remember forever, those reactions. And that scene still gets me. Every once in a while, I'll spend time like watching reaction videos of that particular scene because it's that good. And I think it's going to go down as one of the best in the last 20 years. I really do. And as time goes on, it's still going to be there, I think. Maybe not the best, looking scene or the most, it's hard to explain, but like, I just feel like people are going to keep looking back at that scene as the years go on and be like, man, that was really that good. It really was that good. You know what I mean? It was good. That's our generation's Michael Myers coming out of the shadows. You know what I mean? Maybe it's not as iconic as that, but it's still somewhat on that level where I think people will look back and be like, holy shit, man, that was scary, dude. I remember seeing that for the first time, or I remember showing my friends and them seeing it. You know what I mean? A truly terrifying scene, and you just didn't really get a good look at these things yet throughout the entire movie. And then you finally get this big look, and it's so early in the film that you don't think you're going to get it. You think you're going to see this thing later on in the movie, and you just see it right there. And Joaquin's reaction to it it feels so genuine. Like his jaw drops, that initial, it's not a scream, but he lets out like a, oh, you know what I mean? Like it feels genuine, and I just remember like, every time I see that scene, like the hairs stand up on the back of my neck. Like even just his reaction, the hand over the mouth, and he's just staring. And then when they rewind it and they show it again, and he fumbles to grab the chair and he sits back down and his eyes are just glued. He did such a good job on that scene, man. He really looked like he saw something that he had never seen before. And that's going to be so hard to act out, right? Like, okay, like now when you do this scene, Joaquin, make sure you act like you've seen something like you've never seen before. Well, how do we know? We've never reacted that way, right? It's hard to catch that on camera, I think. And for him to get that scene, I would like to know how many times they did that scene, because he does it perfectly in that take. I'm sure there was a few takes, there had to have been, but I mean, it was brilliant. His jaw drops. He lets out that little, just a little bit of noise, and then he backs off, and he's truly frightened. And I just remember seeing that, and it scared me just as much as seeing the alien did. So that whole sequence, and even before, when the newscaster is saying, this is genuine, what you're about to see may disturb you. Like, it just felt from there to when, Meryl, Joaquin's character, backs up and has his reaction is just such an iconic scene. And it's so well thought out, and it's so well acted, and it's just, it was perfect. It was perfect. Truly, truly great. And I'll always remember that. And I'm sticking by my guns here. That scene is gonna go down as one of the scariest scenes. I really do think that. When we're older and when my son is watching horror movies, I can't wait to be like, yeah, wait till you see this scene. I can't wait to see his face. And if you guys don't believe me, go watch reaction videos of people watching Signs and watch them during that scene. Some of them are hilarious. Some of them are, it's so funny to see their reaction. They've never seen the movie before. Even when they're watching it now, I mean, some of these reactions are like 5 months old, 2 years old, whatever. And it still gets them. It still gets people to this day. And I would absolutely love if I could see that movie on the big screen again. I really do. I would go to that in a heartbeat. Truly, truly great movie. I love it. I just do. Props to M. Night Shyamalan for pulling this off in 2002. One of the only films I think I've ever seen about crop circles too, which are so interesting. You watch that movie and you're like, oh, I want to look up more about crop circles and how they're done, how people are making them, and like all this shit, or are people making them? You know what I mean? That kind of thing. And it's just one of those things that's cool to talk about and read into. And there's not many movies, even alien movies, that incorporate the crop circles into them. It's just a really cool concept, and it was done really well. And I think that's another reason why the movie worked so well back in the early 2000s, is because no one had done movies like that. No one was talking about crop circles anymore. That was like an 80s, late 70s, early 80s thing, and, Shyamalan kind of brought that back, and it was really cool to see. So yeah, that's the end of this episode. I appreciate you guys tuning in. Let me know what you think about this movie in the comments. I'm interested to see what people think, because I really don't know. I know I kind of rambled on here. I didn't really stop talking for 40 minutes, which, why would I? I'm the only person here. But, yeah, I just love this movie. I could talk about this movie for a long time. I love it. Yeah, let me know what you guys thought. Let me know if you guys want to see me review any other M. Night Shyamalan movies, maybe The Sixth Sense, maybe The Visit. He put one out called Old that I watched that I wasn't a huge fan of. I didn't think it was bad. I thought it was pretty good, but, I know he has a new movie coming out as well, based on a novel, if I'm not mistaken. So, yeah, let me know in the comments what you think of this movie. Let me know if you want me to review any more M. Night Shyamalan. Appreciate you guys tuning in. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. You can follow me on Instagram at New England Home of Horror. That's New England HOH. You can follow me on Twitter. Same thing, New England HOH. Yeah, appreciate you guys tuning in. See you guys later. Home of Horror, the Home of Horror podcast. Home of Horror, the Home of Horror podcast.